there, and welcome back. And in this lesson, we're going to be asking the question, is it possible to be too happy? Well, here's the thing, okay? When people all over the world are asked what's most important to them, they typically respond that happiness is more important than things like intelligence, success, and material wealth. However, is it possible for a person to be too happy? For instance, if someone were completely satisfied with their life and it was exactly the way that they wanted it, would they then be motivated to seek positive changes that might benefit them in the long term? If not, could it be that happiness might even be some kind of handicap? Well, one of the best ways to achieving long-lasting happiness is found in being in the service to others. Now, whether you believe that or not right now, someone who spends his or her life pursuing their own selfish interests and grasping for their own happiness without considering ecology or how their actions impact others, the world around them, and the rest of the universe, rarely ends up being the happiest of people out there. On the other hand, a satisfying feeling of peace and contentment seems to be more common among people who spend at least part of their lives caring for others or serving people in some way, whether it's a young child who's dependent upon us, a helpless animal, an older person who needs our help, our children, our students, our clients, or a cause that we feel passionate about. Sometimes when we do what we know is right for us to do, we end up feeling happy and proud about the person that we become through our actions. With all of that said though, often that sense of satisfaction springs from overcoming some kind of difficulty, okay? Now, when a person spends his time placing others' needs before his own, the things that are required of him can be onerous sometimes and difficult. It's only afterwards sometimes that the person can look back upon what they've accomplished and get that feeling of genuine contentment as it sort of settles in. Now, that isn't to say that we should do for others what they could do for themselves. This type of relationship doesn't really help anyone. What I mean though, I think, is genuine service where it's both wanted and needed, not unhealthy relationships that have no boundaries. It's just as important to love yourself as it is to love other people, and maybe even more so actually. So, another example of where difficulties can lead to lasting satisfaction has to do with the state of flow. Now, flow, in case you're unfamiliar with the term, is an optimal state of human experience in which a person feels fantastic and is capable of accomplishing extraordinary results with whatever activity they happen to be engaged in. In their work with the state of flow, researchers have identified 4 separate stages that are essential to achieving that state of flow, and perhaps surprisingly, only 2 of them are really pleasant. The state of flow is actively sought after by people who've experienced it, despite the fact that the first stage of flow is actually often quite difficult and is accompanied by brain chemicals that contribute to things like frustration and anxiety. Strange, isn't it? Likewise, the 4th stage of flow is also fairly uncomfortable, or at least it can be, because it can often resemble depression or a mild hangover. So you might be thinking to yourself, well, surely people could easily choose to avoid these uncomfortable stages altogether. But the thing is, they don't. And why not? Because you see, it turns out that the rewards of experiencing the actual flow state make the discomfort worthwhile. The reward is worth the price you pay for it, basically. Now, if you'd like to learn more about flow, I have a full certification course on the topic. Just take a look at my courses and you'll find it. The point here is, though, that the people often need to go through uncomfortable states in order to achieve long-term satisfaction and happiness. In a way, it's the journey that gives the destination meaning. Does that make sense? American actor Tom Hanks has been quoted as saying, if it wasn't hard, everyone would do it. It's the hard that makes it great. And here's a real twist on this whole thing, okay? A single-minded pursuit of happiness will often lead a person straight into what? Unhappiness. And that is because when we're striving towards happiness, we can set up an impossible standard for the feeling that we intend to experience and be profoundly disappointed when we fail to accomplish that impossible standard that we set for ourselves. An intense focus on one's own emotions, constantly asking, am I happy now, or how about now, is frankly a recipe for anxiety, not happiness. The point is that happiness is a byproduct of achieving goals and not necessarily the goal itself. Besides all of that, Happiness is a state, and a state that can be recalled and entered into with just a simple decision like we teach in NLP. Ultimately, of course, what's important is a balanced and an emotionally healthy life. It's important to acknowledge all of our emotions, not just happiness. They are, if you like, our guidance system after all. Anger motivates us to stand up to unfairness and overcome difficulties. Sadness is appropriate when someone close to us dies, and fear alerts us to potential threats. All of our emotions are important. All of them are important to us, and none of them can exist without the others. And if we want to live a life that gives us a deep sense of satisfaction, then we'll acknowledge and honour all of the emotions. And when we experience happiness, which we will of course do, we can appreciate it much, much more if we have other states to compare it with. Okay, so let's move on now, and I'll see you in the next part.